Okay, so when you think of hip hop, you probably think of music, right? Beats, rhymes, that sort of thing. But what if I told you it's always been something so much bigger? For 50 years, it's been a global movement, a political force, and believe it or not, a kind of news network for communities the mainstream media completely ignored. Let's get into it.
You know, the legendary Chuck D of Public Enemy, he really hit the nail on the head with this. He saw hip hop not just as entertainment, but as this powerful, unfiltered broadcast straight from the streets. He even had a name for it.
The Black CNN. I love that. It's this core idea that hip hop was delivering the real news, reporting on the experiences, the struggles of Black and brown communities way before the major outlets even thought to pay attention. But to really get the news, you have to understand where the broadcast was coming from.
So, our story doesn't start in a fancy recording studio. It starts in a community that was pushed right to the very edge. Hip hop wasn't just some new style of music someone invented, it was more like a creative survival tactic. Think about it. The 1970s. New York City is in the middle of this massive fiscal crisis, and boroughs like the Bronx were just abandoned. I mean, truly left behind. So with hardly any resources or things to do, a whole generation of kids just started inventing their own world.
All that neglect, it created this vacuum, and this incredible raw creativity just poured right in. You had block parties, MC battles, the graffiti art. It was all this organic, powerful expression of what they were living through. And then, in 1982, one song came along and changed everything. The Message. This was basically the first primetime broadcast on the Black CNN. This was not a party track. It was a raw, socially conscious hit that painted this incredibly grim picture of life in the ghetto. And that song gave hip-hop its political voice. It proved it could do a lot more than just make people dance. It could make them think.
And, you know, that voice was about to get a whole lot louder and a lot more confrontational. As hip-hop rolled into the 80s and 90s, it went from just reporting the news to actually making the news. It sparked one of the biggest culture wars of the 20th century. So during the Reagan era, the commentary got way more pointed. You had Public Enemy dropping lessons in Black history, while NWA was reporting directly from the front lines of the conflict with police. This super raw narrative of what was happening on the streets, which got labeled gangster rap, was a direct challenge to the system. And man, the political establishment attacked it from all sides. This defiance just lit a fuse. Suddenly, the music was being condemned by politicians, by advocacy groups, by law enforcement. They didn't see it as social commentary. No, they saw it as a dangerous threat. And one song in particular, well, it caused an absolute explosion. Right, so in the wake of the Rodney King verdict, Ice-T channeled all of that community outrage into a song. And get this, it wasn't even a rap track. It was aggressive, in-your-face, heavy metal. The backlash was immediate and massive. It escalated all the way to the White House, with President Bush and Vice President Quayle themselves personally condemning the song. And here's how Ice-T himself saw it. He argued the whole uproar wasn't really about the lyrics themselves, but about the message behind them. It was an attempt, he said, to shut down a voice that was exposing a really uncomfortable truth about police brutality and systemic injustice. But the fight wasn't just against the establishment on the outside. Inside hip-hop, women were fighting their own battles for their own space. In what was a very male-dominated industry, artists like the great Roxanne Shante were pushing back, using their music to demand recognition as these independent, powerful voices. So despite all the controversies, or hey, maybe because of them, hip-hop didn't just survive, it conquered. That underground movement from the Bronx evolved into the most popular and influential music genre on the entire planet. This table really shows that transformation, doesn't it? The artist from the 80s who was constantly under siege evolved into this modern entrepreneur, this global icon. But look at that one constant at the bottom, still fighting. The core mission, it hasn't really changed.
In the last few years, we've really seen that legacy in action. From protest movements all over the world to the Black Lives Matter uprising right here in the US, hip-hop is still the soundtrack of resistance. Just look at Killer Mike. He didn't just rap about the problems. He stood with the mayor of Atlanta, urging people to organize, to vote, and to create real, lasting political change.
Yemi Bamiro, who directed the documentary Fight the Power, just puts it perfectly. All the commercial success, the global fame, it all sits on top of this unshakable foundation of protest and resistance. So hip-hop's journey from the Bronx to the world stage, it's always been about so much more than beats and rhymes. It's been a constant, relentless fight for a voice, which leaves us with one last question to chew on. After half a century of literally changing the world, where does this movement go from here?